First, I just want to say I'm aware that the editing on my videos is crappy quality, and it's going to remain that way because I'm not really a video editor. I appreciate good video editing when I encounter it in other people's YouTube videos, but I don't do it myself. Just like I can appreciate a good painting, but I'm also not a painter. So yeah, I'm not here for the video editing. I'm just slapping things together. I'm just here to yell about Smallville. Anyways. It's probably going to be kind of chaotic too because this is not an organized channel. This is just me sharing my thoughts on the show as I rewatch it. But I think what I want to do is do a few videos to set up some of these arcs, these storylines that I see. And then as I go through the episodes, I'll point out how those arcs are being developed in the series, that we see evidence of them. There's a reason why I'm saying these are the arcs I see beginning here. So I'll get to the pilot episode, but not just yet. I'm going to do a few that are just about these arcs. So I'm actually starting with Lionel. I'm going to start with Lionel. Now, the easy character analysis you can do for Lionel is, he's a psychopath! Man, what's wrong with that guy? He's psycho! That's the easy way out, and a lot of people take that one and they just say, great, we know to hate him. He's a Luthor, we hate the Luthors, and this Luthor is definitely a psychopath, okay? And then they just stick with that for the whole series. And then everything that happens, they just rationalize around the conclusion they've already come to, the prejudged conclusion that Lionel is a psychopathic, evil dictator, or whatever it is they think. He's a Nazi! But I think it's worth doing a little bit more of an in-depth analysis and trying to actually see this character like he's a person, okay? Try and think about this character like it's a person. Because in the real world, this is just a TV show, but in the real world, you encounter real people who all deserve to be treated like they're actual people and to be thought about like they're actual people. And this problem of people going in and saying, I would rather just say he's a Luthor, he's a psychopath, he's evil, and just move on with our life and never think about any other possibilities, never see them, never offer them empathy, never see them as a real person, never think about the things that they're going through. That happens in real life too, by the way. People do that all the time in real life. There are people who get prejudged and they become scapegoats and they don't get a fair shake. They don't get a fair shake from people and they can go their whole life being treated that way. And that's wrong. So we're gonna practice with this fictional character for real life, okay? So this is what I see with Lionel. We find out more about his past, later on and everything, but like, this guy has, obviously, if I met this guy in real life, I would be like, this guy has serious trauma in his past. I don't need to know what it is. I just know it's there, okay? So I'm watching this thinking, Lionel's got serious trauma in his past, and we find out some of it later. We find out that he participated in, by the way, spoilers should go without saying. There's spoilers in my videos, so if you haven't actually watched the series, I'm gonna spoil it. We find out that Lionel participated in murdering his parents. That doesn't just happen. Now, the people who want the easy way out are just going to say, well, he's a psychopath, so that explains it. That's the explanation. He's a psychopath. And I think, except we do see evidence in the series that he's not a psychopath, because psychopaths, well, we'll get to that later. Like, there's evidence that he genuinely cares about people and has real human emotions, so he's not a psychopath. But then if he's not a psychopath, you have to be able to explain things like him murdering his parents in terms that are not, oh, well, he's just a psychopath. You can't dismiss it. You have to actually work it out and think about it. And of course, I look and think, there's a lot of serious trauma that leads to somebody participating in something like that if they're not a psychopath, okay? Doing something that is psychopathic, that comes from some serious trauma. So just know that about Lionel. What I see is he looks like a guy who wakes up every morning knowing that he could wake up to be looking down the barrel of a gun. He steps out into his day like he's hovering over a chess game that is like life or death, okay? Like someone's gonna get murdered if you lose or something like that. Like it's a life and death chess game every day. And he's like, you picture this guy hovering over the chessboard, his eyes bulging out of his head veins are bulging, that kind of, like, that's what I'm picturing, like, he's tense. Now, that's not what he presents to the world. He looks like he's like, oh, he's just the most comfortable, easygoing person in the world. But what I really think is going on is, this is the curse of alpha dogs, okay? The curse of people at the top of the food chain. And it's the curse of high functioning. Somebody who is lower on the food chain and they become lower functioning, they can handle less and less stress and tension and trauma before they have a breakdown, which actually leads to them processing things on a more regular basis and never letting things build up the same way. Just there's sort of a natural, cycle there of they have their breakdown faster. It's a smaller breakdown. They get over it quickly. They process the stuff more quickly and they move on. People who are at the top of the food chain can put up with an inhuman amount of shit, and just keep taking it. And it can be very dangerous if they don't conscientiously take the time to process things and heal like they're supposed to, because they can take way more, like max out and go past the max of what humans should ever be having to deal with. And by the way, just want to throw out there too, part of the curse of being high functioning is most people, and I'm not even 100% faulting them for this, but just be aware, this happens in the real world. If you act like you're fine, most people will treat you like you're fine. So if you experience some serious traumatic event, but you act like, it's no big deal, I'm over it, and you move on, people will treat you like it was no big deal. They won't treat you like you experienced a very serious traumatic event. So Lionel Luthor, even in the series that we've seen, so I'm not even talking about whatever trauma he must have had before the series has started, right? Which we know is there. But in the series, Lionel goes through some fairly serious traumatic events, okay? We find out about this horrific death of his son, Julian. His wife dies tragically and she loses her mind before that. And I believe he genuinely cared about both of them. I think he loved his wife and his son. The trauma of Lex taking the blame for this. So whatever that was, to process that the only son he has and he doesn't want to, it's not like he's going to get rid of him or hurt his son, right? But at the same time, processing that trauma of like feeling like he's blaming his son for all this trauma that happened. And then that son almost dies more than once. We know the whole situation with the meteor shower. They show us footage, right? We do the think back later on. I don't remember when they do this. There's a think back to what happened to the meteor shower. Lionel was clearly traumatized, like, by what happened to Lex then, where like he's not even thinking straight. He can barely communicate. Like that's trauma. Okay. This is serious. This is a guy who's at a breaking point. Okay. And like, but then he just goes back to life and acts like everything's fine. And then people just sort of forget that he's experienced all of these things and he's still carrying all that. And he's got basically nobody to go to help him work through any of this. So just keep that in mind when you're judging harshly Lionel Luthor. So yeah, he could present to the world his high functioning, look at me, I'm a corporate, king and all that. I'm the emperor of my world and I run everything and I'm very comfortable. I don't think that's what's really going on. I think he's under a lot of stress all the time on a daily basis. And he puts this goes into his parenting of Lex, because I think Lionel is like, Lex can see it too, that he's like, he treats it like it's a game and it's all this competition, this brutality and all that kind of thing. But Lionel's teaching Lex this because that's what he sees life as. Like, Lionel has come to the conclusion that this is what life is. So if I'm going to prepare my son to deal with life, this is what I have to prepare him for. These kinds of like life and death chess matches, Just like in the pilot episode, we get the juxtaposition between Clark and Lex, and that becomes a major theme in the series. We also then, related to that, get the juxtaposition between Jonathan Kent and Lionel Luthor, the two fathers, and how they're raising their sons here. So, and Jonathan mocks Lionel for this, this idea of him living in this life or death chess game or something like that. Jonathan mocks him openly, there's something wrong with him here. And I think, dude, you don't know what it's like to live your life surrounded by people who viciously hate you, people who want you dead, people who want to see you suffer, people who delight in watching you suffer. Lionel's experienced that. He grew up with that. Jonathan's surrounded by people who love and adore him even when he doesn't deserve it, okay? Like, he's got unconditional love around him. Do you think Lionel's had that around him growing up? Do you think that, the parents that he helped murder were the kind of parents that loved him unconditionally? I doubt it, okay? He doesn't have any friends. He doesn't have anybody around him that loves him unconditionally. The closest person he's got to someone loving him unconditionally is Lex, okay? Let that sink in. That's the closest he's got. So yeah, it's easy for Jonathan to mock him and act like, I can't believe you're living your life like that. It's like, I'm living my life like that because if I stop, there's someone ready to stab me in the back immediately. If I make one false step, okay, there are people ready to pounce. They're waiting for me to make a mistake. You don't understand that feeling, that experience of living like that, Jonathan, but Lionel does. So maybe before you mock him, you exercise a little empathy, which of course we find out Jonathan really doesn't have for him at all. Unlike Jonathan, Lionel is raising his own flesh and blood. He's raising a Luthor who's like him. So he knows all of the things that Luthors have to face in the world. He's already had the experience. He's had the Luthor experience already. Okay. So he knows going into it that the kinds of things Lex will have to face, that there will be, he will be hated. He's absolutely going to be hated by the world. He will be prejudged. He will be investigated. He will be humiliated and shamed and mocked, and he will be attacked, and he will not be able to trust people, and he will get betrayed, and there will be backstabbing, and all these kinds of things. Like, Lionel's already been through it all. So the best thing he's thinking he could do for his son is teach him how to survive in a world that is constantly trying to end him in every way, from a million different directions, trying to end him. How do you survive in this world of brutality and competition and head games? I think another key point in Lionel's character is that I think both of the Luthors are. I think both of the Luthors are very lonely men. But Lionel has just been alone for a lot longer. So I think this is just for people in general, when you are a world's scapegoat, when the world has decided to hate you and you've just got that curse, whatever it is, it's on you, that mark's on you, and the world hates you, you have a tendency to start clinging more strongly to objective ties like blood, like family, because you've kind of given up on the idea of having friends and people who just want to be around you just 'cause, and you cling to people who are around you because they kind of have to be. And I think that Lionel's one of those people. Like, we have no reason to think that Lionel has any friends or anybody he trusts outside of I mean, I say his family, but it's just Lex. And even they have like it's not a really strong relationship there of trust. But I think, the danger there is you can put all your eggs in that basket, which I think is exactly what he did. I think Lionel's long ago gave up hope of having any friends. This probably happened decades ago for him. And he clings to his family. Problem is, why do you not put all your eggs in one basket? Well, he's got a wife who's dead. He's got a son who's dead. He's got another son he's just barely hanging on to. And he's got another son we find out later who was only ever really half his, because they weren't married. It was just like a, bastard son situation. And he abandoned him a long time ago. So I don't think he ever had a whole lot of hopes for that kid. That kid's gone. One kid's dead. One kid's effectively just gone. Okay. And his wife's dead. And so he only has Lex, and that's it. So he's completely alone, except for Lex. Lex is the only one he's got. And I think he harbors a significant amount of fear of losing Lex. And I think that leads him to do some shady things, like lying to Lex about Pamela, for example. I'll get into that when I talk about that episode. But a difference, though, in his parenting strategy, partially because, like I said, he knows what Lex is going to have to face, because he already went through all of it. Jonathan, we'll get to him, but he has a completely different philosophy about how to raise his kid. It's very much about hiding and avoiding accountability. I don't see that from Lionel. It looks like he's teaching his son to just face things head on. That, like, there's no point in hiding. There's no point in running. They're coming for you one way or another. The game is, like, given that accepting the truth of the situation, accepting who you are, accepting all the burdens that go with that, facing it head on, and making the best next move. Surviving that. That's what it's all about. So, like, Lionel values survival. He values family. And I think those are key to his MO. And I think there's some element even of survival instinct in Lionel in his parenting of Lex, because again, if he's seeing that, like, I've got nobody else in the world except this kid, okay, all of my hopes for having an ally, for having any progeny that live on after me, this is survival of the fittest instinct, like, it's all on Lex. Like, he's got all of his hope is on Lex. So not only is I believe he genuinely cares about his son and is trying to help his son for his son's own sake, but I think he is also wanting to help his son for his sake, for Lionel's sake, because I think he looks at him and realizes, like, son, if I need you to be tough, I need you to be competent and smart, and I need you to be distrustful and suspicious when you need to be. I need you to make good choices. I need you to be prudent. I need you to avoid or I need you to be careful around women because they're not safe to be around. All these things that he's like trying to instill in his kid, because he's thinking, because Lex, if you don't have these qualities, if you don't grow up into that kind of a man, I'm not going to have an ally I can rely on. And if you don't make it, I'm alone. I will have nobody, okay? Like, I want you to make it because I want you to make it, but I also want you to make it because you're all I've got. And I need to build you into the kind of man that can be an ally I can rely on. So the easy out is Lionel's just a psychopath, and then you don't have to analyze anything else he does. You can always just blame it on the fact that he's a psycho. I'm proposing the other side, that he is a lonely, traumatized, man who is living a very stressful life every day, not processing any of it. So it's just building up inside of him. He's clinging to his son because that's all he's got in the world. And he is simultaneously trying to survive and also help his son survive in an extremely toxic and hostile and hateful world.